Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Lieutenant Josh Johnson coming back for another episode of the Fall-In Analysis product. Now that we've created all of our helper columns off of our data connections, we're going ahead and begin pivot tables. Now, sometimes these are four-letter words or confusing or difficult for people to understand, but they're really quite simple and powerful tools. So right here, just clicking inside, we're on the Legacy Raw tab in our data. We have our helper columns over here off to the side. We're just going to go ahead and go up to the Insert tab and click on Pivot Table. And now it's going to give us some options. And notice the table and range, we want the entire table, and it's dynamic, so as more data adds, it will just continually grab that same data. And now you have the option to put it into an existing worksheet if you already had worksheets assigned, or you can just put in new worksheet. So I'm just going to leave it as a default and click OK. Now notice it added a new sheet and added some other data that we're going to look at. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to name this Legacy Analysis. And then I'm going to make this tab color again green, because green means go and red means don't touch me. I'm going to set up some simple formatting functions right away. Some of the issues that it has is these plus minus buttons. I just go ahead and remove those. I think they take up space in a pivot table. Use them, don't use them, however you need. Design tab under the pivot table tools menu, which is new anytime you click inside of a pivot table. If you don't have it, make sure you click inside of this little pivot table field. Design. Now right here on the report layout, it shows in a compact form, and it's one of the weird ways that it defaults to. Go ahead and click on Show in Tabular Form. You'll see why in a few moments. Grand totals, I'm going to turn them all off for right now, and subtotals, I'm going to turn them all off for right now, so do not show. This will help us expand out, and then we'll be able to pick it. The last thing is not in the pivot tables, but it's in the View tab. Go ahead and just remove those grid lines. Clean this whole field up, and then we can go back in. So now over here on the right, you have your pivot table fields column, and this is every pivot table, or this is every field that is represented in there. You can change a lot of that information here. So right here, so notice it says sort in data source order. That means that every header as it goes across in that table on the Legacy Raw tab is listed in that order. You could also list it A to Z. So if you know exactly what you're looking for and it's alphabetical, it can be there. I'm going to leave it right here because I like to know that all my helper columns are at the bottom. Well, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to begin by making sure what we have in rows. So we have filters, columns, rows, and values. So down here, the very first thing that I'm going to look for is my fiscal year. And what I want to do is I want to just go down here and grab this fiscal year. You can either just click it and it'll go down there, or you can take it and drag. Either way you wanted to do it. And so now you'll notice you have your fiscal year over here on the left hand side. Next, I'm going to go down to our helper columns. I'm going to find that EEC description. I'm just going to click there in that EEC description field. And what it's going to end up showing me is this. And if you notice, when we went in and we added our EEC table, the information got a little skewed because we told it to return the second column, but now we added another column in that table, so we just need to change that formula to the third column and making sure that that EEC description is there. Then when you come over here, notice it didn't change, but if you right click in any pivot table and then your third option down is refresh, now when we refresh it, now we have a much cleaner pivot table with our EEC description. Next, I'm going to grab our RCCC, click on that and bring that down. I'm next going to add in my EEC all 5, and I'll show you how we can clean this up in a minute. ESP, I'm going to want to know my document number, I'm going to want to know my DOV, and we go from there. And now we have up here a post date. Now notice we have a Julian post date and we have a post date. Now the post date, if I click on it, it's going to go down here to this field here. We don't want it as a row. We're going to click that and drag it right up here to columns. Now it's going to list out every single individual post date as we go across. We don't want to see all of that. What we want to do is we want to right click on that post date. And then right down here is group. And what we're going to be able to tell Excel is that we want these dates to be grouped. And we're going to want to group them by months and by years. Now notice I just click on years, no holding control, nothing. It's just going to do that. So for me, what I want to make sure we do is I want to leave the starting and ending. It says auto. I'm going to start it at 10:01 and I'm going to end it at 9:30. So now we have start and end all the way across, and it will become dynamic. So now once I click OK, I forgot 17. Now once we click OK, now notice that it's going to give us the year up here, and it's going to give us the month in here in that order. And which is nice about doing years and months is now you'll be able to have 2016, October, November, December. I'll go 2017, January, February, March. So you're going to be in order of your fiscal year as months go down. And then when we come down here, there's our amount column. Now notice when you click on amount, it's going to automatically come down here to values because you have no blanks and it's all numbers. So anytime in your table that there's no blanks and there's all numbers stored, Excel automatically assumes, hey, you want to sum that. So just click on this and click on value field settings. It's going to bring up your data set here. So now I want to show you that if you make your custom name amount, what it's going to do when you say OK is, sorry, your pivot table already exists, because it exists up here as a field value. So just go ahead and click OK. The easier answer around that, just hit a space at the end. And now Excel thinks it's a different format. Another thing, come down here to number format and change that to accounting with 2 decimal places and a $sign. You can use currency as well. I like accounting because it keeps everything aligned. And so now what we end up with is all of this data as it flows across. The last thing that we want to do is, because we want to get rid of those totals and everything else we haven't seen, we're just going to take our eqsum and we're going to click it and drag it down here to filters. And so now that we end up with our eqsum data as a filter, we can go down here and just say, alright, well, if you remember the formula, all we want to see is false. So just go ahead and click that filter to false. And now it ends up with all of this data set going across. The big benefit here is if you right click on the eq description and go to collapse and collapse entire field, now what's going to happen is it's going to bring everything back up and it's going to sum all of those individual transactions. Now is when we want to start playing with our sum totals and filters. So all we're going to do is right click and we're going to subtotal our fiscal year, and then it's going to come across as data. And we can change all of this formatting in just a moment. So now that we've subtotaled the fiscal year, if you hover over here, and what you'll see is you see your plus sign that you typically see to select cells. Move to the left, it'll turn to that dark black area. If you highlight that, it's going to highlight all of your subtotals that are defined. And so now what you can do is you can come up here and just to the Home tab and the Fill screen, and you can make it a different color. So now you can see your totals. So now we have totaled our fiscal year, which is nice to kind of see. And we're also going to come back up here because now we've realized, you know what, grand totals would be nice to see for both. So we're going to turn it on for rows and columns. And now what you end up with is you get your grand totals over here of your total fall-in amount by fiscal year, but for total of your months. So you'll see your fall-in and fall-out data set. So now that we've done that, what we want to do is we want to clean it up just a little bit and increase slicers. So I'm just going to open up this a little bit. If you haven't experienced slicers before, the power and benefit of them is vast. It's like a very quick and easy filter option. So up here under the pivot tool, tools, and analyze, if you don't have this table, and again, remember, just make sure you click inside the pivot table. So we're going to go to analyze and we're going to insert slicers. So now it'll give us every different header that we want. Well, I know I want fiscal year, I want RCCC, I want my EQ, I want my ESP. You can add more if you need to, but for me, I just want those 4 options done. And now what it does is it gives me these automatic quick slicers. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to move them up here, and I'm going to get them aligned so that they're in a way that I can easily look at them. And then we're going to start to play with them and make them look nice. Alright, so then we're just going to go down here, we're going to move up our last one into our ESP. And now here's the nice thing about slicers is you can just already have one selected, just hold your control key and click on the headers of the other 3. And now you're able to make them all the exact same size and keep them pretty. And you just drop it there. And now this individual one here, all I want to do is go up here, and now you have a slicer tools option. You can change your column settings to more than 1. So that you can go across. Notice if you go too far, you get the dots. That's not something that's easy and pleasing to the eye. So now we have our ESP, Oh, 4 is too many, so go with 3. And you can expand them out if you need to. So then you can go back in here and group them under here. So now I've just clicked all through by clicking Control and clicking each header, and click Group. And now it's going to treat that entire group as one where you can drag and drop it. Right here, when it changes that multi-directional, if you right-click on it and go to Size and Properties, what I don't want to do is I don't want to have it move anytime this expands or contracts. Otherwise, it'll just move with column width. So under here, when you have your format box over to the right, under Properties, just click Do Not Move or Size Cells, and then it's going to keep this data set the exact same. The last tip I'm going to give you here is go ahead and right-click inside of your pivot table and go to Pivot Table Options. And on your tab here, Auto Fit Column Widths upon update. Nope. I will change that myself, otherwise it's going to jump back and forth depending on how long your EEC descriptions are. And then on the Data tab, right here where it says Automatic, change that to None. What this does is it will make sure that it doesn't retain anything in your filters for old data sets. So as you roll over and information's still there, it would just show it as grayed out. Just cleans it all up. So go ahead and click Refresh, or go ahead and click OK. Close out. Now you can play with your zoom a little bit if you want. You can click up here to highlight everything, and then when it changes to the vertical bar with a left and right directional arrow, just double click. It will fit everything in, and now you have your legacy analysis. The next video will show you your DEEMS analysis. The last thing that I want to show you on here is, notice we took away those plus and minus buttons up here under the Analyze. If you add them back in, it just gives you the idea that you can expand it, but it's easy enough just to double click on that mission support or the EEC description, and it will give you all of the data sets that come out and how they actually made that impact, and then you can double click to bring them all back together. Alright, so this is Lieutenant Johnson, and I look forward to the next video where we talk about the DEEMS pivot. Thank you.